Welcome to In Confidence, where what we share in confidence helps us grow in confidence. We are in the last quarter challenge. It's season 3. It's a 10-week training plan for us to finish the year strong and to take that energy into 2026. Each week on Tuesday, we share with you a micro moment, something simple that you can practice this week, and it allows you to ladder up your confidence. And then on Fridays, we have a guest come on and share their thoughts about how that challenge improved their lives. So today, this week's micro moment is lead with compassion and curiosity. The easiest thing to do when someone frustrates us is to judge. And the hardest thing, the one that builds confidence, is to stay curious. One of my favorite pieces of work is by the author David Foster Wallace, and he gave a beautiful commencement speech a number of years ago. And it starts with an allegory. It takes place in a fishbowl. And there are two young fry, I guess that's what two young goldfish are called, and an older goldfish. And they're swimming around, and the older goldfish says to the two young fry, "Good morning, boys. How's the water this morning?" And the two little goldfish, they kind of look at each other quizzically and they ask, "What's water?" And I always talk about seeing the water because the reason he shared this is these two young fish did not know what water was, and it was all around them. It's what they were swimming in. And it's how we as humans go around in our little bubbles, oblivious to what is going on around us. And if we make a choice to see the water, we might choose to behave differently. So later in the speech, he recounts the daily grind of going to a packed grocery store after a long day of work. It's a super long line. The woman in front of you is on her phone. The lady behind the cash register is frantically trying to keep up, and you're angry at all of it. And he says, but if you take a moment to see the water and be aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently. And he says, let's look at this woman in front of you differently. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of a husband who is dying of bone cancer. It just depends on what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and you are operating on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider possibilities that aren't annoying and miserable. But if you really learn how to pay attention, then you will know there are other options. And this is the gift I want to give you this week. When you sit inside another person's story, you create the basis for connection, and then you can make every action and reaction more meaningful and impactful. So this week's challenge is all about how do we lead with compassion and curiosity versus anger, judgment, and almost a selfish sense of we know what's right. David Foster Wallace would say, choose not to operate on your default setting. Choose something different. And here's the science of compassion and curiosity. You know, when we lead with compassion and curiosity, we're not just being kind, because that's an easy way out. We're rewiring our brain. So this is the 2 parts of it. Compassion actually activates our brain's calm and connect system. When you choose compassion instead of judgment, the vagus nerve, which connects the brain to the heart and gut, it lights up. And our body is flooded with the release of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, and serotonin, which promotes a sense of safety and trust. And so compassion actually shifts us out of the sympathetic nervous system, that fight, flight, or freeze, and activates the parasympathetic system, which restores calm and perspective. There's Dr. Keltner at UC Berkeley calls this the tend and befriend response, and it's the body's built-in mechanism for cooperation under stress. So when we choose compassion, it actually creates a different pathway in our bodies and our brains. Curiosity, interestingly enough, quiets the amygdala, which is our fear center, and it strengthens our sense of emotional regulation. So your amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It is your fear center. When you feel judged or you feel threatened, the trigger in the amygdala releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. But when you shift from judgment to curiosity and you ask, hey, what else might be true? What do I not know about the other person, or what do I not know about the situation? Is there something else that could be happening? The activity in your amygdala decreases, and the prefrontal cortex, the one that's responsible for reasoning and empathy, it takes over. And all of a sudden, we switch from being reactive to reflective. And it gives you the space to respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. There's a Harvard study by Dr. Todd Kashdan who found that curiosity improves emotion regulation, reduces anxiety, and it engages the same neural networks used for problem solving and empathy. So compassion isn't just kindness, it's emotional regulation. And curiosity, I don't see it as a weakness, it's cognitive control. So the idea of the combination of practicing compassion and curiosity, it creates psychological safety. And I think there's two components. Compassion is when you can actually, it's not just empathy or sympathy, but it's empathy connected to a sense of, I want to make this better. There's an action attached to it. And I think the curiosity component extends you outwards. It allows you to ask questions and think through what other things might be possible, and allows you to create connection and say, hey, this situation is tough. Is there something that I don't know? Is there something else going on? And when you create that openness with someone, all of a sudden you create the space for problem solving. So when leaders model compassion and curiosity together, team members, they feel safe to speak up, they take risks, they admit mistakes. I think that's a really important one. And those are really important ingredients for high-performing teams. Google's Project Aristotle found that psychological safety, not intelligence, experience, or skill, was the number one predictor of successful teams. So no matter what, compassion is going to make people feel safe and valued. Curiosity makes them feel understood and creates openness so that they don't have to hold on to things. And ultimately, they will build trust. It's the foundation of confident leadership, something that we've been talking about all across the podcast. So here's why it works. When you judge someone or some situation, it might feel powerful in the moment, but it erodes your confidence. Curiosity actually takes more strength and resolve. It requires pausing long enough to ask, what else might be true here? And that question turns a reactive moment into a reflective one. It gives us the space to lead ourselves before leading anyone else. It gives us cognitive control. So when you meet frustration with curiosity, you transform conflict into clarity and a space where we can actually make a difference and solve things together. We can collaborate in that space. When you choose compassion, you turn pressure into patience. And that's the foundation of what we're talking about here. We see people and not problems or conflict. So here's your challenge this week. When something frustrates you, a coworker, a stranger on the subway, a partner, even yourself, I want you to take a 3-step pause. Number 1, breathe before you react. Really take a moment to inhale, exhale, do 7-5-7, which is something we talk a lot about on the podcast. Ask not what I'm feeling right now, what might this other person be feeling right now? And that is the compassion point. And then stay open. What don't I know yet? And how can I understand what's going on better? You'll notice how the story changes when you lead with curiosity instead of what I would think of a very self-centered sense of control. And it's actually not about being right, it's about being aware. I love this idea of, what is this person feeling? What don't I know? Because when you can answer those questions, you make better decisions. I'm going to share a story that happened to me recently. I was in the Atlanta airport. I have United 1K status. For those of you who don't know what that is, it means you fly a lot. And our flight was delayed 8 hours. So I was supposed to take off at 4 p.m. It wasn't going to take off until midnight or 1 a.m. And I was already at the airport at around 2:00. So I'd already been there for a while. And I noticed that the 4:30 flight was taking off at 7:30. So I would get home at least 5 hours. If I had taken off at midnight or 1, I wouldn't get home until probably 5 a.m. I had a chance of sleeping in my own bed. And there were all these people in line waiting to get on this flight. They just had a few seats left on the standby line. And I went up to the front desk and I said, could I put my name down on the wait list for standby? And the lovely United Airlines person said, yes, I can put your name down. She looked at my ticket and she said, oh, you're 1K. Stand over here. And there was this angry group of people, maybe like, I would say at least a dozen people hearing this conversation. And somebody said, what's a 1K? She's been sitting over there on her phone, and is she just going to jump the line ahead of us? And everyone just started getting angry. And someone said, I've been standing here for an hour trying to get on this plane, blah, blah, blah. And we come to find out that there are only 2 seats open. And all of a sudden, everyone's angry and everyone's turning on the attendant. They're kind of looking at me oddly. And I took a breath and I said, hey, if anyone here is going to miss the birth of their child, or they have someone who's in the hospital and this is their last chance to see them and they need to say goodbye to that loved one, or if you're going to miss a big meeting where you're in charge and this is going to affect your performance tomorrow, I will give you my seat. I will give you my 1K status because I am optimizing for my own comfort. But if there's anything that someone needs in this moment, I'm happy to give you my seat. And all of a sudden, the group went silent. And you could feel everyone remembering, okay, we're all just people trying to get to the same place. And I say that all the time at the airport. I used to be somebody who was incredibly angry at the airport if there was a long line or if, I was inconvenienced. And now I use the line, hey, we're all trying to get there at the same time. When you're in TSA and you're waiting for your bag to come out and everyone's impatient and tapping their foot, I always go, oh, we're all trying to get to the same place. I'm cool. I'll stand over here. I actually reshelve bins if there's that automatic bin system. And it was one of those moments where I switched a couple of years ago and said, it sucks being at the airport. And if I bring negative energy to this experience, it's number one, going to make me feel really bad about flying. And it's going to make everyone around me feel worse. I will admit that I did get on that plane because no one stepped forward to say, here's the really important reason why I need to go 5 or 6 hours earlier to New York. At the same time, I think everyone just took a moment and said, okay, that is a very compassionate thing to say. And for me, again, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I guess I am sort of. It was this moment of curiosity that said, maybe there's a story out here that I don't know. And I thank David Foster Wallace for gifting me this idea of seeing the water, because in that moment, I tried to see the water. This week, I'm going to challenge you to take this on. When judgment comes up or anger or frustration, take a breath. Start with compassion. Stay curious. I love that Steve Jobs actually said that often, is to stay curious. And that's how confidence grows. One understanding, a human a moment at a time. I hope you love this episode of In Confidence. I hope you'll practice leading with compassion and curiosity this week. If you love this episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe so you don't miss a moment of inspiration. Join our last quarter challenge giveaway this week. Comment on LinkedIn on this post around how you have led with compassion and curiosity this week, because we have fun giveaways happening all week and all season, frankly. And until next time, in the words of my 9-year-old self, I see you, I value you, and I believe in you. This is In Confidence. Hi, I just want to remind everyone around a little special feature on season 3. We're calling it a little bit of a bonus to celebrate our training plan for confidence. We want everyone to take on the last quarter challenge. So each week on Tuesday, when the episode drops, I will be posting on my LinkedIn, Lisa L. Sun. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll be posting the challenge. And if you like that post and you comment on how you've embraced that challenge, how it's made a difference for you, you'll be entered to win a gift that week. So we'll be picking a winner each week. And then if you complete all 10 challenges by the end of the season, if someone actually goes on and likes and posts on all 10, you'll be entered to win a grand giveaway in December. I hope you'll join me in embracing the last quarter challenge. Follow me on LinkedIn and join in on the fun.